Welcome to the distinguished members of the Diplomatic Corps joining us today. We are honored to have with us His Excellency Alvaro Enrique Sanchez Cordero, Dean of the Diplomatic Corps and Ambassador of the Republic of the Bolivarian States of Venezuela. We also warmly welcome His Excellency William Sidney Bush, Ambassador of the Republic of Colombia, accompanied by Ms. Cheyenne Lee. From the Embassy of the Republic of Mexico, we are pleased to welcome His Excellency Victor Hugo Morales Melendez. From the Embassy of the Republic of Turkey, we welcome Ms. A.C. Civilik, Third Secretary. From the High Commission of Jamaica, we welcome Her Excellency Natalie Campbell Rodriguez. We are also pleased to welcome representatives from the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, His Excellency Ambassador Cor Hirschbach, Deputy Ambassador Ms. Lisette Bloom, and the Policy Officer Ms. Melissa Shorey. And of course, our eminent guest speaker, His Excellency Gustavo Véliz Olivares. I would also like to acknowledge the faculty and staff of the Institute of International Relations, fellow students and researchers, members of the press and media, and members of the public joining us today. Your presence here today reflects the importance of continuously engaging in meaningful dialogue on issues that significantly shape our region and our shared future. And so, with this dialogue, we hope to get a better understanding of Cuba's current crisis and to consider what it reveals about the evolving socio-political and economic dynamics of the Caribbean region. So Cuba is currently confronting one of the most severe economic and energy crises in its recent history, marked by acute fuel shortages, recurring electricity blackouts, and further disruptions to essential goods and services, all reflecting in significant strain across the island's political economy. And while these immediate changes are highly visible, they are simply rooted in deeper structural conditions. For more than 6 decades, Cuba's development has unfolded under the constraints of the United States embargo, operating as a trade restriction, but also as a system dictating the ways in which Cuba can even engage in the world order. By limiting access to international finance, complicating participation in global supply chains, and deterring third country engagements, the embargo established a pattern of structural vulnerability, where external shocks, like the disruption of fuel supply, are more readily and rapidly transmitted into domestic economic stress. And it's within this context that we need to situate these more recent developments. Intensified geopolitical tensions and sanctions enforcement haven't introduced brand new pressures, but have deepened these existing conditions and constraints. Measures aimed at restricting fuel supplies and discouraging regional and international cooperation have further narrowed Cuba's external economic options, contributing to cascading effects on trade, migration, and regional integration. And these developments aren't confined to Cuba alone. As one of the Caribbean's significant political and diplomatic actors, Cuba remains deeply embedded in the region through diplomatic engagement, educational exchange, and internationally recognized medical cooperation programs. Its current challenges therefore carry implications that extend well beyond the borders alone of Cuba, raising important questions about regional resilience, solidarity, and the future of Caribbean cooperation, particularly in the context of ongoing external and imperialist pressures. More broadly, Cuba's situation highlights that the Caribbean is not a peripheral space in global politics, but it's actually part of a strategically significant basin where domestic crises, power relations, and regional solidarities intersect. Understanding Cuba's current crisis therefore requires us to look beyond national boundaries and engage with the wider sociopolitical and economic dynamics shaping the region, dynamics that this dialogue seeks to critically explore today. So this afternoon's program will unfold in 3 parts. First, we will hear the feature presentation from our distinguished guest speaker, His Excellency Ambassador Gustavo Daniel Véliz Olivares, who will offer insights into Cuba's current circumstance and the broader regional implications. This will be followed by an expert commentary and reflection from Ms. Suniti Miraj, which will further unpack and analyze the themes raised. Finally, we will open the floor for an interactive question and answer session guided by Dr. Jacqueline LaGuardia Martinez, and we warmly encourage participation from members of the audience. The program will conclude with a vote of thanks from Ms. Ezra Marie Bennett. It is now my distinct honor to introduce our feature speaker. His Excellency Gustavo Véliz Olivares is a distinguished Cuban diplomat and academic with extensive experience in international relations, diplomatic practice, and social and political science research. Ambassador Véliz Olivares holds a degree in social sciences from Kazan University in the former Union of Soviet Socialist Republics in 1984, and a second degree from the University of Havana in 1996. In 1984, he also obtained a master's degree in philosophical sciences from Kazan University. Between 1984 and 1993, he served as a researcher at the Center for Psychological and Sociological Research, affiliated with the Academy of Sciences in Cuba. In 1993, he transitioned to the Cuban Diplomatic Service and pursued specialized training in international relations at the Higher Institute of International Relations of the Cuban Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or MINREX. His diplomatic career has included postings to Mexico from 1999 to 2004 and the Bahamas from 2007 to 2009. He later served as Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary to Antigua and Barbuda from 2013 to 2018. Upon conclusion of that mission, he was appointed Director of the Division for Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean at MINREX, a position he held from 2019 to 2024. In April 2024, Ambassador Véliz Olivares presented his letters of credence to the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. He brings to today's discussion a wealth of diplomatic and regional experience that will undoubtedly enrich our understanding of the challenges and opportunities facing Cuba and the Caribbean at this critical moment. Please join me in warmly welcoming His Excellency, Ambassador Gustavo Véliz Olivares.
Good afternoon. Thank you for esto en la mano, ¿no? Sí. Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for so kind introduction. All protocol established, but let me anyhow have a complimentation. First of all, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to this university and specifically to this institution that opened us and give to us this opportunity to have a little chat about current situation in Cuba. Let me mention that before I came to here, I was talking with Professor Rosemary Antoine. She cannot be here in person, but she gave to me a permission to announce that U.W.I is supporting Cuba and stay in contact with the embassy to analyze and to see how U.W.I can support Cuba, donation or whatever. Thank you for this action. Anyway, would like to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Abdul Knowledge, recently appointed at a director of this institute, that give to me this opportunity. By me, Sonny Mahart will accompany myself. We share some opinions. You know her better than me, director of Lloyd-Best Institute. And I acknowledge the presence of some friends here that I really appreciate that came. Dr. Nicole Roberts, director of learning language, some research from international relations and from Cipriani Institute. Some, how can I say, member of the media. I recognize the presence of Derek here, which is writing at the at Guardian and some research from this that belong to this staff and Cipriani institution. And of course, thanks my colleague from the Diplomatic Corps, ambassador, that are here by me supporting myself. Of course, I have here some members of my small crew at the embassy and chief of the Cuban Medical Brigade, Dr. Diaz, which is here by me. Thank you, everyone, to share some minutes with me this afternoon that I interpreted, of course, to share some minutes with Cuba and current situation with Cuba today. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Let me try to deal with. Okay, as you know better than me today, many interpretations, many questions, and many opinions about the situation in Cuba. Of course, I know I'm not dealing with all the opinion, but allow me to share some of them, of course, since the position of Cuban government that I represented here, and as part of the Cuban people, because we belong to Cuban people. And we today suffering more than ever for the situation that currently we have in Cuba. First of all, that's why I wanted to highlight that we are still under, as you know, economic, commercial, and financial blockade imposed more than 60 years by the United States. This is very important because sometimes some people, not you, but some people say, no, the blockade is not anymore. Obama visited Cuba, the situation changed. Today, the situation is worse than ever. But I have to say that Cuba is not collapsing. Cuba suffering and try to be asphyxiated by the situation imposed by the United States. This is a different thing. One thing is that you stop it by yourself, and another thing is that other country, which is the case, try to impose to you once again during long time the situation that try to go to you, that you go to the collapse. This is different. This is not our position. It's, we suffering as a result of systematic and economic pressure more than 60 years. Oh, sorry. Here are some examples because, of course, this is a non-new situation. This is a situation that as I mentioned before, that have several examples. This is, I just mentioned here that in 1992, it was signed by a Torricelli law. Maybe you remember that the ship that docked in Cuba cannot go until 6 months to the United States. Just an example. And Helms-Burton Act signed by Bill Clinton 30 years ago. Ron tried to Cubans to back legally, it's supposed to be legal, to back to the former owner or property in Cuba. When revolution came into the power in 1959, was a legal, complete process to give or to establish legal process in relation to the property that Cuban Revolution give to the people as part of process of nationalization. Yeah, that was legal established at the beginning of the revolution. It's lie that they suppose that they can come now to Cuba and we have to give, or for example, my house where I live, today, just an example, no, all property in Cuba. That's wrong, and that won't be happening according to position of our government, according to the position of Cuban population. The reality is that today, more than 3 months already, not any oil came to Cuba. As you know, we don't have enough production of oil. 3 months already without oil because Donald Trump signed executive order in January 29 and imposed the tariff to any country that tried to supply oil to Cuba. As a result of that, as was mentioned here before, the only that they try to get is a humanitarian crisis in Cuba in order that people ask to the government to change the government according to their conception, not according that we feel and think in Cuba. But I want to say that the main cause of the Cuban situation today is still this, the economic, commercial, and financial blockade imposed by the United States against Cuba, with last manifestation we see that was executive order signed by Donald Trump on I just mentioned here 96,000 patients waiting for surgery today. Of course, if not urgent, we have to stop and postpone the surgery. But as part of this figure, at 11,000 children, this is criminal, unjustice. You cannot say that we don't want Diaz-Canel or we don't want whatever president, and children, as you say here, as you see here, you can check it out in any source, waiting because we don't have enough oil and we have just to apply or the most urgent surgery. I have here the Dr. Diaz. He can explain better than me what does that mean. But this is the situation today. It's a human cost. It's a humanitarian crisis that they try to get from Cuba. On this context, last Friday was announced the talk between Cuba and United States. That's true. That's correct. That's happening. I know that some of you asking to me before, but we have to wait until the official information. That's happened, or that's a conversation. We are taking conversation with United States and some levels, and was announced last Friday by my president, Miguel Diaz-Canel. In this regard, I have to say that this is not the first time that we have conversation with the United States. I give here 2 examples. You remember the visit of Obama to Cuba, and after that, visited Cuba twice after finish his term like a president of the United States. We have several moments, some moments at different levels that we stay in conversation with the United States for different reasons. Because the United States, believe or not, is our close neighbors. It's not Trinidad and Tobago, it's the United States. We are so close, meaning that it's supposed that according to international law and according to logical, we have to stay in conversation. But those kind of conversations stopped in different moments. You can figure out why, inclusive, for example, immigration talks and different things. But that I want to highlight is that our willingness is, of course, to have a conversation like two independent countries with United States. That's that Cuba always show his willingness in that regard. Those are only some examples. I would like to please to highlight that any understanding with United States is to discuss bilateral things, but that is not mean or not concern to the internal affairs to the United States or constitutional or the political, economical, and social model in Cuba. Some people understand that United States have to, or we have to sit down with United States and they will say, you have to do it that or what. No. The internal decision in Cuba belong only to Cuban people, not to United States. But yes, we would like to have a conversation with United States. We need the conversation with United States, but not concern in any case to internal affairs of Cuba. This is very important. It's a conception that we keep it, no? In this context, I would like to keep this example because some people ask to me about release of prisons in Cuba. Yes, in these days, as it said there, we are looking to release, in this case, 51 person sentenced of prison. But this is not the first time as well that we make that. I have the quantity there that is something that we make several times or sometimes during the years. 10 person sentenced were about 3 years ago released, and since 2010, more than 9,000 persons. This is the decision, independence decision, and common practice according to our legal system in Cuba. I insist, it's not because the United States asked to us, it's our decision, and we have that kind of practice in some years ago. In relation to that, I, of course, would like to highlight our relationship with Vatican, because this is in the context that we release those persons. I have to say that we have a very good relationship with Vatican. By the way, Cuba, as I say, I think I wrote there, Cuba established the relationship with Vatican in 1935. Never broke the relationship. We have good relationship with Catholic Church, Holy See, and Vatican in Cuba. Our president visited Vatican. Fidel Castro, Raúl Castro, Díaz-Canel visited Vatican, and Cuba has the honor to receive in 4 occasions 3 Pope in Cuba, in 4 occasions. According to my best knowledge, just a comparison, no, the country in Latin America that more visits receive from Pope is Mexico, 7 times. I seen them Brazil and then Cuba in 4 occasions. We have the honor to receive in Cuba the chief of the Catholic Church. And recently, my Minister of Foreign Affairs visited and was received by the Pope in Rome, like envoy of the president, of course, in relation with this situation that we have now, of course, no? Of course, stay in conversation about this situation. But I wanted to explain that it's not specifically asked by United States, but this context in the context of relation with our great, today I can say good relationship with Catholic Church. We have difficulty, of course, we have a lot of difficulty by the beginning of the revolution, but never broke the relationship. Then allow me explain that despite we stay in conversation with the United States according to our conception, of course, I would like that not you, but international media respect our conception. Surrender or submission is not an option. As a result of the relationship with the United States, that is not being, as I said before, they no, Diaz-Canel, no, should be, I don't know, Gustavo. No, this is not the main goal. We defend our internal system, our democracy, and this is not an option that we will reverse our political system because their recommendation. This is not the first time, believe me. Now it's very, very terrible situation, but this is not the first time that we have that kind of situation. That's why I give some example over there. You remember, for example, during the pandemic, COVID-19, we don't receive any vaccine. And by the way, when we ask the United States for give some obscene, they say no. That's the relation. That's the reality of relationship. We survived during the pandemic by our self effort, and actually we create Cuban vaccine, Soberana and Abdala, specifically to dealing with the pandemic. And thanks God, we reverse the situation. I only give this example to say that resilience, that called today, is part of our daily life in Cuba. It's difficult, it's so difficult, but it's part of our daily life in Cuba. Actually, during the pandemic, as I say over there, we sent Cuban Medical Brigade for different countries and offer our vaccine to the Caribbean. 100,000 vaccine we offer to the Caribbean, free of charge. Keep or not, this is another thing, but we produce and offer. And here in Trinidad and Tobago, Cuban Medical Brigade stayed helping the people of Trinidad and Tobago to dealing with the pandemic. I just give those examples like others, just an example that, as I insist, the situation is very complicated, but we try to deal this and to solve at the end of the day. I mentioned here in this regard some actions that we try to make today. For example, my president comment a lot last week about it, no? Now we have to change our energy matrix because we don't have enough oil. We have actually we produce only low quantity of oil, and it's a heavy oil. It's difficult, but we accelerated, try to change of our energy matrix and install or going to electricity generation through photovoltaic parks. Difficult, yeah, it's difficult, but we installing solar panel, accelerating, and try to connect some isolated house, for example, or a school or whatever, to a national energy system through solar panel. Difficult, I insist, it's so difficult for for country like Cuba. But we're going forward. Just an example, in March, we are looking to add to the national energy system all 58 megawatts added that way. My president, as I said in a speech last week, gave some example about all that we try to make it that way. Then, around Cuba are several campaigns. I just want to mention 2 or 3 of them. Cuban Medical Brigade, Dr. Orlando is here. All that I mentioned here is according that happened in the country that we have Cuban Medical Brigade. And it's in accordance to international standard because say that Cuban doctors workers on the condition of slavery. That's lie, complete lie. I give here some example. They receive, first of all, before they departure to Trinidad and Tobago or whatever, they sign an agreement. I don't impose that they sign. They sign an agreement, a contract, and they are fully informed where they're going, which condition they will live, and so on. And they receive the full remuneration in Cuba. The employing position in Cuba is keeping, because we need the people back, of course, no? That's a general, and they have the documentation. In Trinidad and Tobago, they keep their passport and their documentation by themselves. If they want tomorrow go from there, Dr. Orlando have his passport, not at the embassy. Keep him by him. Please, you can you can change about it, because but I insist in that because it's a lie, international media and so on, that they are slavery. This is, by the way, Dr. Orlando have a high qualification like a doctor, in his case, like epidemiologist, accomplished already 5 missions, no? 6 in different countries. I don't know, you feel slavery was, I don't know. Okay. Then, another of political campaign, Cuba is a failed state. I can say that today, believe me, you going to Cuba today, that of course there is not, there is a so difficult situation, blackout and so on. But our institution have a normal, according to the situation that we have, has a normal functions, education system. Stop it in present, but continue. In general, daily life in Cuba, according to this situation, of course, but have the normal wars. And that happened during 60 years. You know, Cuba get a highlight social development, in different things, culture, medicine, and so on. That's why they are here today, for example, because we can offer our experience to other countries that they get in Cuba. I don't know how can say that Cuba is a failed state. And as I say, over there, spend a lot of money. I just give 2 examples here, but a lot of money to try to reverse Cuban political system. Let me clarify that I know that I mentioned here, USA aid is in relation to Cuba. I know that in different countries here in Trinidad and Tobago is different situation. I just, please, talking example in relation to Cuba. They spend a lot of money during the years, that's some example, to try to, through this organization, for example, there are others, try to reverse with different plan, political, institutional political system in Cuba. I don't know as I say, spend a lot of money to try to reverse a failed state, according to they. Also, they say Cuba is the dictatorial regime. I have some example there. For example, our people, American citizens have a different restriction according to the blockade to visit Cuba. Restriction according to the United States government, not according to Cuba. We open to have the relationship to receive all them in Cuba. It's not Cuba that prevents our citizens to visit the United States. It's on the contrary. United States prevent their citizens, teachers, artists to have cultural exchange and so on. I don't know why they say Cuba is a. Why I know why, but I have different conception about the dictatorial regimes. About democracy in Cuba, in this regard, I also would like to share some examples. First of all, our constitution, now from 2019, we have constitution 1940, 1966, and the last one version of our constitution, 2019, was approval like a referendum, popular referendum, 86%. Our national election is not election in another country. It's in Cuba, according, I don't know, maybe someone of you visited Cuba during the election. If not, I would like to invite what is going on to the elections in Cuba. The last one national happened in 2023, and 75% of population of voters, the voters, 75% is not all, because because it's not an obligation to get to vote, but the majority of Cuban people in age to vote, 75, give can and vote. And our parliament is unicameral parliament in case of Cuba, but I would like to highlight something that I think is interesting. 57% of our parliament are women. This is not because Cuban government imposed. This is, I hope that not wrong, but I think it's the second one around the world parliament with more quantity of women like member of parliament, 57%. This is democracy. According to my best knowledge, yes, this is democracy. This is demonstration that, or demonstrate as well that our women are empowered, no? Gilda Lopez and Jacqueline. Jacqueline, by the way, not by the way, but it's very important, Jacqueline, Dr. Jacqueline La Guardia, training in Cuba, and then here, thanks you for this opportunity. But Jacqueline can explain better than me what does that mean to be woman in Cuba, and what the options that you have according to our social development. This is just an example. 57% of members of parliament are women. I'm proud of that. And according to my best knowledge, this is democracy. And there are several examples, family code and so on. We, like a heritage of Fidel, we discuss in the population. That's Fidel learned us, discuss the main document or the main legislation. And that's the case of family code. Because I remember that we discussed about homosexuality, for example, no? In this last version. Some people against and some people in favor, but you have to discuss. You cannot impose because if you impose homosexuality marriage, then they will say that you are like a dictatorship state. No, we discuss and approval, by the way. That's correct, no? Okay. Then, other thing that frequently asking, why in Cuba only one party? Generally speaking, I want to explain, I can share with you the PowerPoint, no problem, of course. This is public information, no problem. My colleague, ambassador from Spain, she's really interested in Cuba. Okay, why in Cuba one party? We have different conception, different idea, but in Cuba, we used to have several parties. We already, I don't criticize, I don't say this is the best system or no. I only say that this is our system. And allow me 2 minutes to explain this. First of all, the revolution not began, according to our conception, don't began now. We have, the revolution is in the process since 1868. 10-year wars against Spain. This is no relation with you, it's the history, of course, no? Please, we are a good friend. By the way, we have a good relationship with Spain. That's correct? Please. On the 19th century, and this is very important to understand because, say, Cuba only have only one party, but you have to back to the Cuban history. 1868, Carlos Manuel de Céspedes, considered father of the nation, give the freedom to the slave. Began 10 years wars against Spain. Failed. That's 10 years. Why fail? Division, different conception, no discipline. That's first time in the history that we learn that we have to be united in that occasion against Spain, and today in front United States. We don't have any option according to our interpretation. We have to be united. It's our history. Then, February 10, 1868, Spain proposed to us sign the pact, peace without independence. No. General Antonio Maceo, some days after, signed or reject the proposal of Spain, no Cristina proposed, reject the proposal. No, this is so serious, so important in our history. Reject that proposal and sign with that incident that we know that protesta de Baragua, protest of Baragua, reject part of the San Juan, and start to organize again Cubans people to try to dealing with independence against Spain. That's why, based on that experience, Martí organized the party, the Cuban Revolutionary Party, April 1892 and February 24, 1895, under the leadership of Martí, started the last period of our revolution, dealing with one party. Then, in relation to that, people say, Fidel never belonged to the Communist Party. That's wrong, historical. The Communist Party in Cuba was created in 1925. And in 1944, changed the name and conception to Socialist, Popular Socialist Party. Was that condition. And the main organization that dealing and get into the and dealing with the revolutionary process, there wasn't Communist Party. That's wrong, historical. Fidel was dealing with a 26 July movement. That's the reality, not Communist Party. And those three organizations, 26 July movement, Revolutionary Students Organization, and Popular Socialist Party, 6 years after revolution came into the power, 6 years after decided to unite and reestablish again Communist Party, 1965. But I think that it's important to clarify that because many persons, no, actually this morning I have an interview and asking to me about, no, Fidel, communist. That was the process, no imposition. Then, no, this is the last one. Okay. At the end, I think this is the last one. This is my own, a little my interpretation, just mine, about the implications of a current crisis in Cuba. I see it's just my interpretation. I don't say that they're right or no. But I would like to highlight which is the main thing for me. Cuba respect and value its relationship with the Caribbean. And Cuba consider that the relationship with the Caribbean is mutual, beneficial for the Caribbean and for Cuba. We have a lot of examples, including the relationship with Trinidad and Tobago, several good examples about it, and I would like, or I hope, I'm pretty sure that the relationship with the Caribbean will be continue and make deeper and wider. Okay, I would like to conclude, please. It's a video, 1 minute video. Where is the video? Just 1 minute. It's okay?
Este es Estados Unidos. Esta es Cuba. Este es el país de las guerras, de las invasiones, de las armas, de los bloqueos. Este es el país de la llamada libertad, donde se secuestran presidentes, se financian genocidios, se detienen niños inocentes, se asesinan migrantes. El país que ofende, amenaza y llama a los latinos delincuentes y a quienes defienden su música como lo más terrible. Este es el país bloqueado por ese que financia guerras y asedia inocentes. El país que ha llevado a sus médicos a salvar vidas en más de 160 naciones. Este es el país que ayudó a devolver la visión a más de 3 millones de personas, que ha alfabetizado a casi 10 millones de seres humanos. Este es el país que hizo vacunas durante la pandemia, que salvó a miles del ébola, que llegó a Angola y a Vietnam. Este es el país que hoy Estados Unidos asfixia, al que le impiden importar una gota de petróleo, al que no le dejan respirar. Hay una sola verdad. Esto es un asedio político y diplomático de más de 60 años, de un país poderoso contra una isla que solo defiende su derecho a existir, cuyo poder está precisamente en la fuerza y en la grandeza de su gente.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you so much.
All right, thank you very much, Your Excellency, for that very insightful and thought-provoking presentation. I think you've given us a very valuable and critical perspective on what the realities of the current situation are and how that actually begins to impact all of us. And I think it provides a very solid foundation for the discussion that's going to follow. So to help us further unpack some of the themes that would have just been raised, we now turn to our commentator, who'll provide the reflections and additional perspectives on the issues discussed. It's my pleasure to invite Ms. Suniti Miraj, Managing Director of the Lloyd Best Institute of the Caribbean, to offer her commentary and reflections. Ms. Miraj, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a very enlightening presentation, but I would like to say that if the Caribbean was united, we wouldn't need to come today to find out all those things. The reason that Cuba finds itself at this moment with the isolation within the Caribbean is because of the failure of the independence movement. And I'm not speaking only in Trinidad and in the Caribbean, but in the entire hemisphere. Because what we all know, and it's being said every day, that the international rules-based order is collapsing under the order of might. That lawlessness is on the rise, and it is finding an easy path because of how easily people are surrendering, countries are surrendering. And the reason that that is happening is because the very thing that we hail, democracy, is only useful if people know what it means and they live it. You cannot be spouting democracy, and as an individual, you're disempowered. You don't know what you're talking about, and you are so knowing that your mind can be easily captured. What we have is mass capturing of minds. And of course, modern communication technology facilitates that wonderfully. You've come to a point in the region and the world where we are not ready for the forces that have power, technological power, and that people are grist to the mill. And the only response that we can possibly have, the only enduring response is knowledge, information, understanding, and we are not investing enough in that. In the case of, I'm thinking, or I'm sure all of us are thinking, how does Cuba negotiate this moment? And where does it find within the hemisphere? Where does it find willing support that could dare risk the mighty United States? As we have seen the retreat, the quiet retreat. You cannot dare send a ship with fuel. How can you not dare send fuel? You know why? Because you are doing it alone. And the story of the Caribbean is a story of division. And I've always maintained that the most radical force in this part of the world, in the post-colonial world, is unity. It is the one thing, if we can find common ground, that numbers make a difference. You cannot stand up alone. Alone, we are individual and small. And the only thing that when Biden, for example, agreed to let Trinidad, with the dragon gas and so on, is because we went to him as CARICOM. The argument that was given is that we are a small part of the world and the other islands need fuel and so on. We didn't get it because we are Trinidad and Tobago. We went as CARICOM. And you have to invest as a people. We have to invest in these regional alliances and relationships. But how will we invest if the ordinary person doesn't know? The first thing, imagine a prime minister would get up and say, we're a capitalist country, we believe in capitalism. This is a country of state capitalism, the state. You capture the state, you capture everything. Where's the capitalism? We don't even know what we are doing. So I want to put on the table the Cuba negotiating its way forward. It needs, first of all, continuous communication about what is happening in Cuba. I remember the height of the Duvalier, end of the Duvalier regime in Haiti. I was part of a group arguing the establishment of a bureau, a Caribbean Media Bureau in Haiti. Because language barriers and language barriers have are just as solid as if you put up steel barriers. The ability to move and communicate and understand and therefore become interested in other places and find commonalities and find Caribbean family is limited by the language barrier, by currency barriers. But how can we justify language barriers after so many decades of investing in teaching in school all the ways? People go to school for 7 years and get a A-level and they do a degree and they come out and they can't speak the language. And we're not seen as a failure. That the University of the West Indies is graduating people, that the elite prestige secondary schools all over the Caribbean, CXC, it should be interrogating itself. Where are the people? We have a larger population that understands Spanish today thanks to the Venezuelan migrants. Because, I mean, people are dealing with people. It is not an exam. It is communication. It must be easy to give yourself like 5 years as a region and say after 5 years, we're all multilingual. The language barrier, it has to be solved. We have to be able to know what's going on in the Caribbean, and that's a failure of the media. And I come out of the media and I can tell you that it is a failure of the media and it's about commercial enterprises. But you have to have that. We don't know anything that's going on in Caracas, coming out of some other agencies. We have not invested, this is a point, that we have not invested in critical institutions of the media, the education system. I mean, we could think about a branch in Havana, or some part of southern Cuba, where we have very close ties with the population there. We need genuine institutions of integration. We have all read, for example, the audacity of the United States National Security Strategy, the audacity of a superpower that is saying all of this is theirs. We have seen the groups come in and ask for no permission, and we talk about our sovereignty is not compromised. And we don't even have the academics and intellectuals to stand up against that. Not here, not in Jamaica, not in Barbados. And of course, there are a few people. So when I generalize, we expect more of the people we have invested in at this time to defend the Caribbean, to defend Cuba, to defend Venezuela, to defend Haiti, because the next one could be us. And so I want to make a case here for a serious consideration, because we haven't made the first steps in consideration of the fact that hemispheric unity, not Caribbean unity alone. First of all, there's unity in your own country that you don't have. You don't have it at a national level, regional level, and then of hemispheric level. But the pursuit of hemispheric unity as a bulwark against superpower might. Now, one can be a superpower today and may not be in a few decades from now, but that will not be an untraumatic incident. It would come with a lot of trouble for all of us, right? There is nothing that exists today. Can you say it's going to be here in 100 years' time? There's no guarantee that the United States will remain the United States. We have to conceive of a future and begin to work towards it, because any of us could be in Cuba tomorrow, in Cuba's position tomorrow if we just know. We are loudly saying yes because we dare not say no. So I just leave this review with asking us to think about how is Cuba going to negotiate this moment? I think the strongest thing that Cuba has going for it is its investment in local government. Our own politics, I mean, we boast about our politics. our failure at grounding our representation in local government to empower individuals from the ground up to know and to be part of a decision is the big failure of our politics, our so-called Westminster style politics. Very top down. We have looked at the biggest, greatest so-called democracy in the world, and we have been flabbergasted at how easy it is to discount all the structure and the gatekeeper of power and all the checks and balances that USL is always talking about. They have check and balance and check and balance, and it has turned out to be for naught. You have certain enough people in the Congress who will not say no. Humans failures, and can run over anybody after that. So I think the strongest thing, and I would urge Cuba to trust the people. If Cuba has invested so much in community engagement and mobilization and helping people, encouraging people, and create a system where they know, the people, they know the community, they can defend their culture, they have a sense of sovereignty. I'm sure I've been to Cuba, I know they have a strong sense of sovereignty that you often don't find in other parts of the Caribbean. Trust the people at this moment and bring them into your process, and they are your shield. Apart from that, I would hope that there is some way in which CARICOM or a group of Caribbean leaders could become part of the interface with your discussions with the US and with anybody else. Often the CARICOM sees itself in some minor role because it's always asking for money. For everything it has to, it doesn't invest in its own. It doesn't put the money, we don't do anything. We don't even have a court, our Caribbean Court of Justice. The Netherlands, I think, or somebody paid for that. We don't invest in our institutions. That's why we don't take them seriously. But it must be, the CARICOM and the Caribbean must be part. I would hope that we want to be part of that. We want to be at your side, because negotiating the terms on which you begin a process of opening up your country in such a way that it is done to save what you have best and to make change for the better. I see Venezuela is really walking a tightrope on that. I see half of the world's media calls the president puppet. The other half says, well, she's very skillful. But I think what she's trying to do is ensure when the day comes and there's a general election that she wins it. And so she is working that game very well. So I think those are my few comments for now, and I will close with that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Mirage, for those very perceptive reflections and for making us really consider our own collective failures at unity and regional, and as you said, hemispheric cohesion. So we will now move into the question and answer session of today's dialogue, where we do strongly encourage participation. It'll be moderated by Dr. Jacqueline LaGuardia Martinez, Senior Lecturer at the IIR.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm very pleased to see this room full. It's not something that usually happens, so I encourage you to keep on with the enthusiasm coming here today, but also coming to other many activities that we invite and we organize here at the IIR. My job here is basically try to promote the conversation and to keep awareness of time, because it is 3. We should be finishing around, I believe, by 4. So it means that we have a solid 40 minutes that I hope that we engage in a conversation, we engage in comments. I believe that the Cuban ambassador will be very pleased to listen from you. What would you like to know? And I believe that the academy is, and this university is a very good space to promote this type of discussion and dialogue. So I will stop talking now. So I will now invite you. I see a lot of faces of my students. It's not that I'm putting pressure on them, but well, I would like them to, to do their question, and also members of staff. So please, everyone is welcome to join the conversation. Yes, please. Please, yes, the microphone is on the back, so please help me. I mean, by the way, this session is recorded. It's not on Zoom now, streaming alive, but it's recording, so you can tell your other people that they can check our YouTube channel because it will be uploaded very soon. Yes, and please remember, because of, for our audience and also for the recording, please indicate who you are. I know many of you, but the rest doesn't. So please indicate who you are, where you're coming from, so we can know who you are. Please.
Chris Starr, professor at U.W.I. My question has to do not with the sustainability of the revolution as a whole, but just with one particular aspect, and that is the very much appreciated medical brigades, which you mentioned. Now, I'm told, presumably accurately, that in Haiti, outside of the capital area, most Haitians who are seen by a doctor are seen by a Cuban doctor. I take the medical brigades personally, because when I go to St. James for my daily radiation treatment, I meet the nuclear engineer in the cancer center is a native of Pinal del Rio, and I'm a bit envious of him because I've only been to Cuba twice. He goes back every year, so I take it personally. Now, my question is, excuse me, should we fear that the present crisis, which I believe is like a second special period, effectively, should we fear that the present crisis puts in danger, imperils the sustainability of the medical brigade program? En resumen, si la coyuntura actual ponga en peligro la permanencia de las brigadas médicas.
Okay, thank you. I propose to take 1-2 questions, comments, and then we can invite the ambassador to react. And related to the medical brigades, okay, doctor, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you would like to share something, please feel free to do so. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vasan Bharat, former government minister. I think if COVID taught us nothing, it taught us that we are a speck in the ocean. Trinidad and Tobago is a speck. And so therefore, we are very dependent on the links that we form with our neighbors in the Caribbean and the rest of the hemisphere. If nothing else, it's taught us that. So I want to ask the ambassador, in light of the presentation that you've made, where we've seen over the decades that Cuba has deployed thousands of medical professionals to the Caribbean, to Trinidad in particular during the COVID-19 pandemic. You've assisted in technical training in the areas of sport, engineering, agriculture. Remember the large farm projects, the agricultural projects in Trinidad and Tobago. You have been involved in several areas of training in Trinidad and Tobago, as well as the fact that you've educated through your university several doctors in Cuba who've then come back and worked in the Caribbean. Plus, of course, you've assisted with disaster preparedness and after disasters. Bearing all of that in mind, and bearing in mind the relationships that you've shared with CARICOM and in Trinidad, do you believe that the Cuban people feel somewhat betrayed by Trinidad and Tobago's position that they've taken to align themselves with the United States of America against Cuba?
Okay, sir, comment. I have here our PhD candidate, Richard Lynch, and I believe that Professor Duqueran. Oh, I have coffee. Okay. So let's take 2 more from our students, Mr. Lynch and then coffee. And we have a third lady there, and this is the first round for comments and questions. Okay, so please, Mr. Lynch.
Yes, I just wanted to follow up on what Mr. Vasan Bharat just asked. to build on that question, the extent to which not only the potentiality of Cuba feeling betrayed by Trinidad and Tobago, but the extent to which they may feel betrayed by CARICOM, particularly because of the geopolitical dissonance that appears to be part of the challenge of arriving at a unified foreign policy position on extra-regional actors in our space. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, coffee. Okay. Yeah, so we are moving to coffee and then to our student back there, and this is how we finish the first round.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am Kofi Macmillan, a Master of Science student at the Institute, and my question is a fairly simple question. What diplomatic strategies, Ambassador, are available to Cuba in reacting to the current crisis which has engulfed the island, particularly when considering their relationship with CARICOM countries and the wider Caribbean, and also in their attempt to navigate their tense relationships with the United States? Thank you.
Okay, very good. Diplomatic strategies, that's good. And ¿qué estrategias diplomáticas está siguiendo Cuba para lidiar con la situación actual y relacionarse con el Caribe? Okay, yeah.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Rampersad. I am a student of U.W.I. My question is, the topic of communication and unity among the Caribbean has been brought up quite a bit, I would say. I visited Cuba before, and I've heard firsthand from the people about a lot of internet censorship. So I would like to ask if the aim is communication and integration and hemispheric unity, as the term was brought up, why does the Cuban government censor the people online? Thank you.
Okay. Censura en internet. Okay. Okay, so, okay, we take a stop. Keep on thinking about your questions and comments because we come for a second round. So please, Ambassador.
This is CNC3, no? Can we, for a minute? Just a minute. Just a minute. Please, don't abuse me. No. Please. Feel myself betrayed, no? You say betrayed by the French, the Caribbean people, Trinidad and network and so on. You know where they came, no? It's the same thing, the same situation. They are honored for everything. But I have to say with a great proud that today we're trying to get a high development standards on internet and on ¿cómo se llama? Government, digital government. We have several examples. Of course, the great media don't share sometimes our experience, but we have all organized to development in that regard. I don't remember now the percent of population that has access, or sorry for that, to internet, but it's not the law, but it's on the contrary. It's a high percent of population in Cuba that has free access to internet. I will confirm the quantity and can send to you. Actually, I make a compromise to share with you some experience that we have several experience. Our Vice Minister of Communication visited Trinidad and Tobago at least 2 times in those 2 last year. We have a good relationship with Caribbean Telecommunication Union, and so we have great experience in Cuba. But of course, that we don't have in Cuba is enough conditions. We have several limitations, but not because Cuban government, please, this is clear to understand. We don't have deny access to our population to social network, to internet, and so on. Actually, we have to dealing, we don't answer, but every Cuban citizen can access to the social network today and dealing with several lies that are internet about Cuba, terrible. But okay, not prohibition, not control, nothing like this, okay? Hay una pregunta, no entendí bien. No, okay, I don't know if I answer correct, but Cuba is the one of the country that more embassy have around the world with so limited resource. A lot of our embassy, about more than 70, no, have one person. 72 have at least one person, but that one person, I don't know, in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so his wife and children to be there. If you ask to me, it's a high cost, but it's also as part of our strategy, as you say, to be present everywhere until the government decide. Ecuador just expelled our diplomat. Difficult to understand. They were dictated by United States, of course, because with people of Ecuador and government of Ecuador, we had several histories. We have a big, for example, medical brigade in Ecuador. We in Ecuador have historical relationship. And Novoa, now, let me smile because this is terrible that happened. Some days ago, expelled our diplomat, but we were isolated, my friend, we were isolated by the beginning of the revolution, of course. Actually, that's why our great value about the relationship also with the Caribbean, because 4 Caribbean countries, inclusive Trinidad and Tobago in 1972, signing the relationship with Cuba when we don't have a relationship around the Latin America and with almost not anyone. Only Mexico stay with Cuba all the time up to now. By the way, my appreciation to Mexico that today stay with Cuba and with several initiatives supporting Cuba in that difficult situation. That happened during 60 years, the same thing. Only Mexico don't broke relationship with Cuba. And in that situation, 4 Caribbean countries, Trinidad and Tobago inclusive, signing the relationship with Cuba. Our strategy is, using your affirmation, is to maintain and to deep the relationship with everyone. Ecuador, the history will say that they wrong. They wrong. Because you cannot have a strategy answer on the dominion of the United States, but it's not the Cuban situation. Always we're looking to increase and to get any possibility, any option to have increase our relationship. I don't know its answer, but okay, thank you.
Let me. Sí, ya ahora sí. So let me continue from here so you can stay around. Any other comments, questions? By the way, about internet censorship, there are many sites you cannot access in Cuba, but because they are owned by US software. For instance, Zoom. If I go to Cuba and I want to teach my student from Cuba, I cannot do that. I cannot access Zoom. And there are a lot of platforms that cannot be accessed because it is forbidden to be used in Cuba because of the sanctions. What also happened in Cuba, and we see that a lot, that internet is not functioning during major blackouts. Of course it happens. You don't have energy, you cannot have internet. We have seen also in episodes of huge citizen protests and violent acts. And we have detected that in many of these occasions, actually internet is restricted because it serves as a potential for communication to go to do violent acts. And yes, in this case, I should recognize the state cuts the access to internet to prevent violence in the streets. And that's totally legit, I believe, because you cannot allow public media to actually call for violence. There's people who agree with that, and I believe that many states will prevent that to happen. But again, this is a subject of discussions, and many people have a lot of different views on that. So, yeah.
Okay.
Thank
No,
you.
Just, excuse me, just one commentary about in relation that the professor said. Yes, we're learning every day something else, of course, no? And your advice a little thing very important. Yeah, we try every day to increase the participation, to bring the people as part of the process. Community, for example, this is, how can I say, new on the last years, no? We try to get, or we giving the independence, inclusive economical independence to the municipality, like constituency. That the process that we living now, no? Some of you know Cuba very well, can support my that I say or make your contribution. I acknowledge the presence, allow me to acknowledge the presence of David Abdullah that know Cuba very well. Maybe he can make his commentary in support or not that I just try to comment. You know, David Abdullah is a political leader of movements of social justice and our friend. Okay, we try to incorporate more and more and give the independence of constituency, municipality in Cuba. That's the process that we live in now. Excuse me, Ambassador.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ambassador. Natalie Campbell Rodriguez, High Commissioner for Jamaica here in Trinidad and Tobago. And my question, I'm not sure to whom it's addressed. What are the implications for the wider Caribbean given the current crisis in Cuba? The Cuban ambassador in his presentation, he listed some things, but I would love to hear from others. Because the Cuban issue is very emotional. And so we're focused on that. But the lecture is on the implications for the wider Caribbean. What are some of those implications for the wider Caribbean based on what is happening in Cuba?
Okay.
At the moment.
Thank you. We have David Abdullah, please. Yeah. Who else would like to speak to? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and then 4 here. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone, Excellencies, sisters and brothers all. First, let me apologize to Ambassador Gustavo. I got here late, so I didn't hear your presentation, but I think I have an understanding of what you may have said. And since you called me out, I have to say something. Two regards with respect to High Commissioner of Jamaica, the land of my birth. The implication for the Caribbean is very simple in my view. One, I think Suniti raised one, is the division within CARICOM, which is already evident and began some time ago, because Mr. Trump, from Trump 1.0, was always intent on dividing CARICOM. And so he had a meeting in Mar-a-Lago in Trump 1.0. Some heads of government were invited, others were not. And similarly, the Shield of the Americas did exactly the same thing. Incidentally, Ecuador broke and expelled the Cuban diplomats from Quito 3 days before the Shield of the Americas meeting. That was not accidental, as it was not accidental that the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, a few days before that meeting, attacked Cuba by claiming it was, quote unquote, a communist dictatorship. But she was very happy to get money from Saudi Arabia, U.W.I, et cetera, none of which are, quote unquote, multi-party democracies. And that therein lies the hypocrisy. So I'm going to speak, Vasant, because I know the ambassador would not have answered the question. I said to my colleague here, he would answer that question. So let me answer the question. We, the Caribbean people, must demonstrate solidarity and friendship with the people of Cuba, regardless of what our governments may or may not do. That is our historic responsibility. And secondly, a divided CARICOM at this moment weakens all of us. CARICOM slogan is stronger together. Well, right now we are weaker because we are divided. Some are running behind Mr. Trump. It was amazing that the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago spoke to Parliament the other day about a party being financed by pedophiles and drug runners and so on. No, I'm not defending the opposition, but Mr. Trump is a pedophile. His friends are pedophiles, and he pardoned the former president of, was it Honduras? Yes, who was a convicted felon in the United States for drug running. So we have to call out hypocrisy where it exists and not be afraid to stand up and talk truth to power. And I don't sugarcoat words because we cannot sugarcoat words. The other implication of Cuba, if the Cuban Revolution is destroyed, and we know the Cubans are going to do everything possible to stop that, but they're under extreme pressure. If it is destroyed, what that says psychologically and politically to every country in this hemisphere is that nobody can stand up to the Monroe Doctrine, the national security strategy. Nobody could stand up to the United States, and we will all therefore, in effect, be returned to colonies of the United States. And that not only in terms of economically and politically, but psychologically and morally, that would be an absolute defeat for our sense of dignity, our right to self-determination and sovereignty. And I will and with respect to the democracy in Cuba, people say because there are no multi-party elections in Cuba, there's no democracy. When Cuba is more democratic than our multi-party systems, because there are elections at municipal level, at provincial or state level for the national legislature and so on. And they're conducted on a level playing field. So you can't get big financiers financing the candidates. Each candidate has the same access to town hall meetings and to the same flyer, same size flyer putting forward. And not all the candidates in elections belong to the Communist Party. Many people who contest and who are elected are not members of the Communist Party. They stand in their own communities, and the people in the communities vote for them if they think that they are able to represent them properly. And one could go on in terms of the debates that take place over policies. The last constitutional reform, for example, which discussed the issue of giving rights to the LGBTQ community and same-sex marriage, went through hundreds of iterations of discussion in workplaces, in communities, in the mass organizations, the trade unions, the women federation, the youth, and so on and so on. All over the country, there are debates, and people submitted thousands of written recommendations, which then got debated on television, on their roundtable programs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That is far deeper in terms of participatory democracy than we have here, where we get out something on X saying the government has decided A, B, and C. So I just want to end with that. Thank you very much.
Yes, I believe we have somebody on the back. Yes, please. I don't know who else.
Good afternoon, everyone. Josanne Leonard, Caribbean citizen. I think the first thing I'd like to say, Ambassador, thank you very much. I came in on your presentation. And I think the question is not to you about what are the implications. I think the question is to us, Trinidad and Tobago, and the wider Caribbean. And I was saying to my friend and colleague Suniti yesterday that having spent a long day at the St. James Medical Center for medical treatment, to get home to see an edition of President Trump talking about what he could do to Cuba if he wanted, and if I want it, I can take it, and how I can take it, and whatever it is. I was so devastated. I was very, very emotional. And I think I want to say, Ambassador, through you, that we, the people of the Caribbean, we in Trinidad and Tobago, we in CARICOM, have let down our brothers and sisters in Cuba. And I think each and every single one of us in this room and elsewhere needs to take some responsibility for that. Ambassador, High Commissioner, with all due respect, the implications for the Caribbean and CARICOM, I think that first question should go to Prime Minister Holness. who was one of the first prime ministers in this region to go and sit very quietly with Mr. Trump, get picked off, and this whole process that has unfolded prior, the first Mar-a-Lago, and now the Shield of the Americas, where our prime minister has been jumping up like a real little puppet in a box. I make absolutely no apologies for saying that we are responsible. And I want to ask the question, not of the ambassador, because I was doing some back channeling, trying to find out what is the latest position of CARICOM, because I was in St. Kitts. I was there with the spiriting of the story that broke about young Rodriguez coming to have a bilateral with Marco Rubio and everything that unfolded since then. I was there when the Prime Minister of St. Kitts, who is the St. Kitts Nevis, who is the current chair of CARICOM, says that we will be mounting CARICOM a humanitarian effort. We can't ask Ambassador Gustavo, what is that humanitarian effort? Politics aside, all these sort of pronunciations and trolls on social media about the communism and the this and all of these things that we're hearing, we are facing a humanitarian crisis. We know it in an intellectual way. We know it in a way in which we pass information. The country that has been blockaded for the last 60 years and has still managed through all of that to stand with CARICOM. And now we are talking about what can we do? No, we have to do a lot better than that. I understand, as of this moment, to be confirmed, I heard a reference to Mexico, that Mexico, as we speak, nations in CARICOM that committed to a humanitarian effort are still to pony up, unconfirmed. As I said, I was doing some back channeling before I came to this gathering. One country was named as saying, well, if the rest of them are not going to go, we have to go. And that's Barbados. One country so far, I'm not aware of the others. And that this aid, unconfirmed, is supposed to go, financial aid is supposed to go to Mexico, so that Mexico, as the closest neighbor and has kept the channels of diplomacy open to help to alleviate and begin to address a dire, dire situation in Cuba. So while we have the benefit of sitting in this little air conditioned room getting cold, and we can see that garbage is piling up, that there's no medication for children, that even if the Chinese send however many solar panels, it's going to take a particular length of time for that to kick in. What do we expect the Cuban people to say to us? That they feel betrayed by us? When they don't even know what they're going to be facing in a day's time, in 48 hours, in a week from now, while Washington, via Mar-a-Lago, twiddles their thumbs and says what I can do with you and what I can't? I'm very, very devastated. I said to Suniti today, yesterday I felt helpless. Today, I don't think I feel any better, except to say that thank you, Mexico, that you are trying to keep the doors open. There's talk about Russia trying to send fuel, but of course, of all of the sanctions, but who knows with these big boys what will play out. So, Ambassador, I don't have a question for you. I have an apology to make to the Cuban people through you on our behalf as citizens of this region, that we grow a pair. This is not about politics. This is not all this stupidness that people are talking about, communist bogies. If there was something happening down in Debe or Soufrière erupting in St. Vincent and whatever it is, where are all the business people? Where are all the people who have gone into Cuba? In particular, Vasant is here. Export TT opened an office in Cuba. Where's the business class in terms of responding to the humanitarian crisis not whether you believe that this is a system of government they should have. Where are we as Caribbean citizens? I don't know the answer, but I feel that we don't even have to dig very deep. Where is our sense of humanity, people? Please, we can't put Cuba on trial to answer questions that we know will have to go around diplomatic speak. We can't. The question is, what do we do? How can we use our spheres of influence? How can we use our voice? How can we use our offices? How can we use our networks to not only talk solidarity, but to find ways and means to support our Cuban brothers and sisters? Thank you.
Okay, let me take, I believe, one more question here and give the ambassador the opportunity to respond, because we have had 4 so far. Yeah.
Afternoon. My name is Peter Bain. I work in culture. I speak a lot with Josanne, who just spoke, and I wanted to pick up, in fact, what Mr. Abdullah spoke about. The truth is, Ambassador, the conscience and the spine of the Caribbean people is on the ground. We're wasting time on top. That's a fish rotting from the head. We're wasting time. It's a point that CLR James made. No new ideas are coming from this class. The spine of the Caribbean people, it's a point that Gordon Lewis made all the way in the 1950s with the history of the modern West Indies, is on the ground. And there is a way to mobilize the people on the ground. We have a very, very evolved culture in the Caribbean. I think of Michael Manley, who said we are neither A or B, but a third thing is emerging from the Caribbean. And we never tap into it. We never tap into it. I remember, as a person who has worked with film, I had to go up to the Schomburg Center in New York. And after they looked at what we had in the Caribbean, he said to me, Trinidad, you people have the best story, but you don't have great archives, but you have the best story. And then a filmmaker from England said to me, you are the people who have the opportunity to tell the mythology of our times. The world is waiting for us to show up in our own life, and we haven't yet. And the truth is, the text that we need to mobilize the people doesn't come from the conversation up here. The people themselves have produced it. Our carnival, for example, is not an entertainment, it is a text. It is a text, and it has a very specific political position. It has a posture, it has spine, it has memory. And we have all the forms that you need to tap into the Caribbean people. Where CARICOM failed, there actually is a crystallized, unified Caribbean community. It is called Laventil, where people from Jamaica live with people from Barbados, live with people who have Grenadian descent, from all over, Elma Francois from St. Vincent. So there is a concrete CARICOM, but it was achieved culturally, not with political speak. So in fact, if we were to tap into the text, and the work is already done, you don't know it, but the work is already done here, that can show you how to tap into that text, to speak to the people on the ground, to mobilize them, to get our spine standing again. Listen, the instrument that came out of the ground is not anything soft, is it? It is steel and it is iron. That's the character of the people. The nature of our climate, it's volcanic, it's hurricanic. It's not a tourist escapism, as V.S. Naipaul would say. So the spine of the people, if we were to tap into it, is all that you need. But we have to use the text that are down there that I never hear in fora like these. And the work is already done that can be offered to you. Work on the ground, get the people mobilized. And then those on top will have to follow because it is clear that they cannot lead. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you. Yes, Ambassador?
Well, I don't know if, if I did not answer something specific, no, but first of all, I would like to appreciate all the commentary, including your commentaries. I get the main thing. Yes, we open and we has and we should touch the base of touch the people. This is our, I don't know, our willingness, our expectation, and in general, believe me that I feel so, general speaking, no, so near of the Caribbean people as part of not only my diplomatic life, in general, like my family. I believe in the future, I believe in the relationship, and we're working every day in favor of the relationship with the Caribbean in all fields, inclusive the field that you mentioned first before. I just wanted to express my appreciation, Dr. LaGuardia, my appreciation for the opportunity and for to you that spent some minutes this afternoon. My appreciation for your support, for your comprehension, and for your suggestion. It's difficult to live under that condition, so difficult. As I said before, we try to learning every day for something else. For example, as the professor mentioned, try to incorporate the people on the own contingency or municipality. It's a very good experience that we try now. Inclusive give to them the option to give outside the country, I mean, for the international commercial relationship by themselves. But please, believe me, believe in Cuba, and believe me that we will fight until the last moment to try to reverse this situation. Solidarity, yes, we need your solidarity. That's true. We need that you believe on us and accompany us every day. Several examples we have, that solidarity that we provide, we give to the Caribbean and around the world. We need that you accompany us now because those policies from the United States is injustice, criminal, and don't have any, we cannot justify this policy. And this is the main obstacle, the main trouble that we have to going forward. But we will try to going forward. We will going forward. Thank you for your commentary, and thank to you as well for your reflection. I don't know if I.
All right, so a massive thank you to everyone who contributed such thoughtful questions and also responses during the session. I think that this conversation has certainly highlighted the importance of continuous engagement on the evolving situation in Cuba, as well as its broader implications for the Caribbean region. Thank you once again to our speakers for contextualizing this crisis and for exploring these ongoing impacts, and to our audience for being so willing to engage with this necessary discussion and being so willing to contribute to it. I hope that the themes explored will actually consider us to continue to encourage and understand the importance of regional solidarity, cooperation, and support in the face of these ongoing external and imperialist pressures, and to also consider our collective and individual roles, as was very rightfully pointed out, in maintaining the sovereignty and in continuously offering support to our neighbors, because again, this impacts all of us, and it's only a matter of time before we also start to be impacted by this lessened sovereignty that we are seeing across the region. And if I may, I would love to take this moment to call Mr. David Abdullah to actually announce a campaign of solidarity.
Thank you very much. It's not usual to speak after the vote of thanks. I didn't say it during my contribution, but on the 1st of March, a number of civil society organizations in Trinidad and Tobago, including the network of NGOs for the advancement of women, the Emancipation Support Committee, Caribbean Freedom Project, and a number of others, Trinidad and Tobago Friends of Cuba. We had a forum as part of the recognizes the centennial of Fidel's birth, which of course is in August of this year, and also the recognition of the February 24th, 1895 launch of the War of Independence by Jose Marti and Maximo Gomez and others. And at that forum, Ambassador Gustavo was our main speaker. We had a number of contributions by Professor Horace Campbell, who used to lecture here at St. Augustine when I was a student here in the early 70s, and others. And at the end of that, we agreed to launch a fundraising campaign to buy medicines and solar panels for Cuba. Unfortunately, I've lapsed, so I take responsibility for that in not getting that word out yet, but it will be out in a day or two. And we ask everyone, when you see it on social media and otherwise, to make a financial contribution. And we will use that money. We have begun to identify, and thanks Dr. Orlando for identifying the types of solar panels that are required. We'll buy some solar panels and medicines, and then we'll try to ship it directly from Trinidad to Cuba, so everyone could make a good contribution. Basant, I'm sure, will be the first to put up some of his mega millions. That was my senatorial colleague for a couple of years. I could tease Basant like that. Thank you very much.
All right, so it now gives me great pleasure to invite Ms. Ezra Marie Bennett, MPhil, an International Relations student here at the IIR, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Okay, hi, good afternoon, everyone. It is my distinct pleasure to have the opportunity to give the vote of thanks this evening. Firstly, we would like to acknowledge and thank the members of the Diplomatic Corps for their attendance here. It definitely reinforces the importance of sustained dialogue between diplomats and academics. We extend our deepest appreciation to our distinguished feature presenter, His Excellency Gustavo D. Véliz Olivares, Ambassador of the Republic of Cuba to Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you for that very comprehensive and powerful presentation. We are especially grateful for you being willing to share these perspectives, especially during this very uncertain geopolitical climate. We are equally grateful to Ms. Suniti Maharaj, Director of the Lloyd Best Institute, for her expert commentary and reflection. To our U.W.I faculty and staff, and to the representative of the media, thank you for joining us and supporting intellectual engagement beyond the classroom. Special thanks to the Director of the Institute of International Relations, Dr. Abdul Noors, for his continued support of initiatives that promote scholarly engagement and meaningful exchange. A very special note to our lecturer, our senior lecturer, Dr. Jacqueline LaGuardia Martinez, affectionately known as Dr. Jackie, and our ambassador at large, whose vision, leadership, and unwavering support continue to elevate the Diplomatic Dialogue series. Behind every successful academic event is a dedicated team working quietly but tirelessly. We therefore extend heartfelt appreciation to our Secretariat staff. And finally, to all of you, our attendees, thank you for being here. Your presence, questions, and engagement definitely transformed this lecture into a meaningful dialogue. So, thank you.